What's up,
Hey,
Matt?
me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes, you're
Cool. Cool. I just had to switch
what?
rooms real quick here and get my internet up, make sure it was working all right. So,
So Greg's
Greg,
out. It's just you and me.
yeah, well, it's you and me. We'll just make it nice and easy and quick today. Everybody, welcome to This Week in Lumber with Matt Beamer from Hampton Lumber Sales. Greg Riley is out. I'm going to say visiting customers, but my guess is he's probably chasing a little white ball around a about a 5,000-yard course right now. It would be my guess. Actually, I think the course is more like 6,500 yards. But
That's funny.
won't make that assumption. But when I look out the window and I see the weather, that's usually my guess this time of year. How are you doing, Matt?
I heard you guys were getting like really bad storms and whatnot. Is that true? The upper Midwest, like violent
There.
storms recently?
So here's the crazy thing. They've been happening at night where I'm at. So I wake up, pick up a bunch of sticks out of my yard, and it's
Wow.
beautiful out, right? And the yard is watered, so I don't have to go out and do that. And
Yeah.
all of it's over with, and I sleep through it. But there has
Huh.
been some storms and some bad stuff. But man, honestly, for the last 2 weeks, this is what you live for in Chicago. I mean, walking home
Yeah.
Mindy and I did a picnic the other night in Glencoe. It was 79 degrees, no humidity, no bugs, and we were sitting over the lake looking at it, and it's been like that for the last 2 weeks.
I remember I came down and visited you in Houston about 10 years ago when you were living down there, and
Yeah.
you and I were walking around the city at like midnight, and it was still like 98 degrees and 100% humidity. I was like, this is like living in a greenhouse.
Yeah,
We don't get
it's
that
fun.
kind of stuff in Portland.
People in Houston get used to that, right? I mean, that's when you like I told you, you literally the health club's across the street, and I go,
Yeah.
"We're gonna walk over there," and everybody's like, "Walk? We don't walk anywhere here. Like, we're driving, buddy." Uh,
Oh, those were the days.
yeah, yeah, no doubt about that. So look at it's interesting. I caught up with Greg last night. I should have asked him about the market, but uh, I've been doing a few other things this week, and I wasn't concentrating as much in the market. And it seems like Eastern producers came back on again. Um, and what Greg was telling me, we're kind of offering selected items significantly below print. Hey, Mark, your buddy Mark Ross is on. He said, "Aloha from Arizona." What's up, Mark? How are you? Um, and maybe you could help catch me up. I've been kind of not concentrating on it as much, and so print was off last night. The market seems to be off. Things seems to still be pretty liquid.
Yeah.
Futures are around 500 and something, about a $75 discount to the cash market. So if I just landed coming back from Mars for the last year, how would you update me on where we're at in lumber right now, Matt, across North
Well, I
America?
mean, there's a 500 different moving parts right now. It's just okay. I'm going to eliminate Southern Yellow Pine from this discussion because I'm not an
Yeah,
expert at it and I don't trade it. But when it comes to Eastern spruce, Western spruce, dry hem fir, dry Doug fir, green Doug fir, I can comment on those things. And what I'm seeing is this, Ashley. There's just all these different cross currents that are going along right now. I've got guys calling me before I even get to work in the morning, desperately trying to buy prompt trucks of lumber that they need tomorrow because their cars aren't in.
yeah,
And then I've got guys that are like, "Oh, I'm getting offered all kinds of stuff, and I have no interest in buying lumber right now. We're going straight to zero." I mean, I've kind of got like all the different perspectives that you could possibly get, which I guess is the sign of a healthy market, right? I mean, if we were all kind of on the same page and all nervous about the future and had no business to worry about, we'd be in dire straits right now. But that's not the case. What is happening is there's uh there's some selling of euro, I think, that hasn't even arrived yet in this country. That's really cheap. Okay, so that's one thing I'm seeing is especially on the East Coast. There's a lot of euro being sold cheap for two and better, two before. way cheaper than what we're selling Babine cars to people that want to buy two
And
before.
there's a reason for that. I think a lot of people that aren't involved in the Euro trade is the Europeans don't really. There's only a few of those that have their own actual importer of records here. Most of them go to brokers and other people that then buy that from them with little or no risk, right? Some of
I
them, it
guess,
depends
yeah,
upon how the risk is. They have a minimum they're going to pay and a maximum, but they're just getting paid to move it. And then they
right.
can make a little money on the little discrepancies, right? So when you get into an uncertain market like this, the people negotiating with the Europeans are probably like, it's a tough one over here. We'll take it all at this, right? So, but then they want to move it. So they just want to get that
Yeah,
stuff
and
moving.
they are moving it. I mean,
And they
they're
are
moving it.
moving it.
They're moving
Yeah.
it cheap. Okay, so
Which is
that
a
sets
pain
the
in the ass
tone.
off of which is a pain moving stuff off some of the ports, as you know, Matt and I know. It's taking us 3 weeks to get some trucks out of some East Coast ports right now because we send trucks in every day and there's too many there. They won't load them. Just general stuff like that you
Right.
and I have dealt with. So I apologize. I said about the ports. Go ahead and continue with what you were talking
No,
about.
that's just one part of the market. Okay, so you've got this cheaper lumber that's out there, but it's not like that lumber doesn't serve everybody's needs. Some people won't use it because it doesn't have the same strength rating for a truss yard as Canadian version does. Um, and then there's the lengths that you can't really get from the European mills. They notoriously are bad at producing 14s, and 14s are something that are really in high demand right now, right? So I mean, if I had 20 trucks of 2x4 14s laying around in a port somewhere, I could sell them in one phone call right now, today,
Yeah.
at a high price. Probably closer to $800 delivered instead of $700 delivered, right? And so there's some things that are good, and there's some things that are bad. I think green Doug fir. I mean, the market on green fir is kind of soft. I think dry Doug fir is a little bit soft. Dry hem fir is a little bit better because there's less of it being produced, and there's downtime out here in the West right now. We've got some mills that are doing some annual maintenance type stuff, and we also are continuing to have log issues. It's not like we talk about the price of lumber being flexible and liquid, right? It changes, it goes up and down on a regular basis. Well, log prices don't go up and down that quickly, and we're still dealing with pretty high log prices, and we're competing to buy logs, still expensive logs. So there's some weird stuff going on in terms of the big picture. And I like the market. I think the market it's in a position right now where prices are relatively fair, compared to what we've been paying for the last 2.5 years. The price of lumber's at the low end of the spectrum. And you can kind of get your lumber in a reasonable period of time, as opposed to what we were doing back in like February, March, and April, where we're waiting for. I mean, in my case, I had cars that I waited for 4 months to ship. The rail situation has gotten a little bit better. The trucking situation has gotten a little bit better, and the demand for lumber has gone down enough to where we can kind of manage the flow of material. I think that's healthy, and I think we're in the middle of a slightly soft market. The industry's net short. I think that there's been a lot of orders taken to buy here over the last 30 days. And I look for a positive rebound here sometime the next week or two. I really do. I think there's a lot of orders that need to be bought here in the couple
Yeah.
weeks for
Well,
inventory and for
look, man,
projects.
we got next week. We got some interesting stuff coming up, right? You got August 8th, the new contract launches. You're at an $80 discount. Is that really an $80 discount, or what are the CME mills on the 4-inch doing right now for orders? What's the real cash market versus print trading at on 4-inch right now?
Well, we're selling. I mean, we're not selling massive volume, but we're selling a couple, 3 cars every day of
Yeah.
2 and better. Looks like we are getting about 650 FOB Prince George equivalent,
Okay.
and the board is at 50 something, 506.
Yeah. So I guess
So
what
there's
are
a
what are the
$150 spread between what we're getting for 2 and better lumber versus what the board says it's worth on September 15th.
okay?
I'm kind of inclined to buy the board at this point, because I can convert that $500 2x4 into some $400 number 3, or I could maybe convert it into some 9-foot studs. You know, I mean, I can convert it into some 2x10 cheap, some 2x12 cheap. There's things that you can do with the board at minus 150 that make me want to buy it, not sell
Well,
it.
or heck, when it actually converts over on August 8th, I'm wondering, what do you know when the first contract is going to be trading on the small contract? Because shoot,
I think
uh,
next week.
you can start taking. Yeah, but is it going to be the September contract, November contract? Which is the first one that
That
they're
I
going to
don't
launch?
know.
Okay.
I do not know. And there's some question. I've had this other question. I've asked my futures broker. How do I transition from the historical 110,000 board foot contract into the new contract? And I'm still waiting for some clarity on that. So you know, it's new, and we're going to be doing the growing pains and learning what the rules are. But we're still waiting for more guidance from the CME.
I think there's going to be great opportunities for wholesalers too, and distributors and users to actually deliver um, cars into Chicago now, right? And I mean, as a wholesaler, just really just go off short and deliver cars into Chicago and do that kind of thing. It'd be kind of interesting. Question: Bob Schneider was asking, how much are the BC or the Western Doug fir log prices up this year compared to last year? Do you have any?
BC's way up.
Yeah.
I think the Canadians are now like the highest cost producing region in BC. I don't know about Alberta. I know Alberta prices. So had a conversation with a guy, I don't know, 4 months ago up there in Alberta about log prices, and they had made it clear that, you know, the prices were going up quite a bit, substantially. And I know that July 1st we just reset the log pricing based on this quarterly, you know, review type thing that they do. I think the break even now is about 600 in Canada on 2x4, and you know, maybe it's higher, maybe it's lower, depending on how efficient your sawmill is. But if you do the conversion math, it's about 600. I think most of the Western mills are probably more in the 500 or 550 range for dry lumber, and I'm talking about U.S. Western. Inland mills, I think, have even maybe a little bit better math than that because they have such a good log. And the yellow pine guys are the cheapest log in the whole world, right? I mean, it's like those things just grow like it's a greenhouse, and they just harvest them every 30, 35 years, and there's an unending supply of yellow pine trees. So uh, but yeah, no, I think log prices are going to stay high for a little while. Who wants to be a logger?
Yeah,
Who
that's
wants
well,
to be a trucker?
that's the real issue down in the South, and I think that's slowly changing. A lot of these loggers are like, "Hey, we're getting the same," and this is just what I hear. I could be way off on this. It costs us a lot more to drive our semis and employ people and fill them up with gas and deliver logs and cut them down and deliver them to a mill. We're not seeing the same. We're we're not seeing the same gratitude come into our pockets that everybody's seeing. And you're right. How many people want to cut logs right now if you know you go to where you're making more money, the most money, right? So I
Well,
think that's going
it's
to
just
change, and I think they're going to actually have to pay loggers a little bit more in the South, and actually um, incent more people to cut more logs in the South.
I think every industry, whether it's being a logger, being a plumber, being a tradesman, you know,
Yeah,
being a line worker, somebody that, you know, works on a farm, um, these types of blue collar jobs that are necessary for us to exist as a cohesive society where you and I can go to the local store and buy our food and go home and feed our family. Um, these jobs are historically undervalued for what they actually do for society. If you think about it, you know, I mean, you can't build a house unless you can convert a tree into some lumber, right? Well, how
right.
do you convert a tree into some lumber? Somebody's got to go cut the tree down, put it on a log truck, take it to the mill. Then it's got to be handled by the mill people to run it through the sawmill process and go through the grading. This all requires labor.
Yeah,
Now, here's an example of the problems that we're facing as an industry. Being a logger is not sexy. You know, working in a sawmill is not sexy. We have our reload here down in Portland, which is a 25-acre facility, and we use that reload to load lumber for our Warrenton sawmill and for our Tillamook sawmill, as well as we do some we'll do like sorting. We have a sort chain, we have a chop saw, we can take like 18s and 20s, cut them in half, that type of stuff. So we have some light reman capabilities down there. We can't hire anybody,
Yeah.
and then we can't retain anybody. And now we're losing our summer help because college is starting back up again in late August and early September. So, logistics in this country, I don't care what industry you're in, are not getting any better. These aren't exciting. You're not inventing the greatest new app in the world, right? I think our kids, like my kids, I don't think they want to be loggers. I think
Look,
they
and
want to go
I
be a
sound really
programmer or something.
I sound really old saying this. Um, Somebody asked on social media, "What's the one thing that people have lost the skill of doing?" It was just one of those stupid questions on social media where we put it, and I put work.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel really old here, but it's hard even to get people to come to an office to work anymore. Everybody wants to sit at home, side gig a bunch of different jobs, work from home, and get paid.
Do you
And
think that is a result of the pandemic?
the pandemic, to me, nothing has changed in 2 years to change work ethics on people. People have changed that, right? I think it's everybody. I'm getting down a slippery slope here. Everybody, I was at a party this weekend and somebody looked at me and said, "I like it that I don't have to work as much now. It's more like Europe and I can be at home more now." And I said, "Well, I really like going to work and I like working really hard." And I was looked at like the guy with three heads, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm that's just how I
You're
was
old
raised, right?
school.
Right. That's how I was raised. You work hard. Um, and I don't know any different, right? And uh, you know what? I'm fine with it because I still think the people that work hard are going to be rewarded differently, right? Now, there's certainly
I mean,
jobs at home.
just show up,
My
man.
wife works at
Show
my
up.
wife works at home all day, right? And she's done that for
Right.
15 years, and her job lets her do that. In sales, I need to look around and talk to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And find out
Right.
what's going on. I don't want to schedule a Teams meeting for an hour from now to talk about something that's literally just happening in front of me, right? So, hey, quick question for you. So, what I really like um, about who you talk to and the interactions you and I have had over the years, I think you talk to some pretty smart people, and I think that you've weeded out a lot of people in your life from the sales side that waste a lot of your time. Um, and it takes a lot for you to do that. And so what you have created is a group of a lot of people that you buy from and sell to that I have a lot of respect for. And I think you do too. And when we talk about it on weekends or something, when you and I talk, we get good feedback. So how can I phrase this? What are the really smart people that you know that when they buy, you're like, oh, well, that's usually an indicator of the market. We all have the person that we know when they buy or sell indicates both sides of the market, right? Sometimes more or less.
Well,
That
I can say this: in the last week and a half, I've had a certain mindset that I've wanted to accomplish. This is how I run my business. This is not really any different than anybody else how they run their business. You have to have a master plan, and then you have to have micro plans. And so my master plan is to trade lumber on and be successful at it, right? I mean,
sure,
but within that, I every month I have to analyze how am I handling my inventory, how am I handling my risk management, how am I performing as a mill salesman for Hampton, how am I communicating with other traders. I mean, I have a lot of things that I'm responsible for, but within that, I have to really focus on running the business that I've created. And in order for me to accomplish the things that I want to accomplish, every week I have different goals. Like, last week I had the goal of I wanted to sell about half the cars that I had coming into Texas for inventory. I wanted to spin half of them off and keep half of them. And coming back from the inland and knowing the tone of the market, I was thinking, yeah, it might be a little harder than I thought. I'm going to have to maybe be more flexible on the prices than I wanted. Well, and I was kind of concerned about liquidity. Well, I sold all that wood and then some. And not only that, but I wanted to sell some trucks too. Well, I did. I sold the trucks. And so the little miniature goals that I've had for myself to run my business successfully, I've accomplished last week and then again so far this week, which tells me that the market isn't near as bad as people want it to be. And so here's to answer your question. There's that piece of information right there. Am I able to accomplish sort of my micro goals? Yes, I am. But here's within that, the people that were buying lumber from me last week were kind of the medium and small size customers. It wasn't the big nationals. It wasn't the big multi-yard companies, the regional companies. This week it's changed. It's now becoming more of the larger companies that are coming in, and for various reasons, they're wanting to engage a little bit more. It might be that they've got jobs that they sold that they need to cover. It might be that their rail cars didn't get spotted on time. Whatever it is, I'm just starting to see more orders and a significant amount of more inquiry to that part of the customer base. So read into that what you will.
Yeah, so I mean, reading into that, let's take it a step further. Greg and I were talking last night, about if we were sitting by each other trading, what would it be like? Blah blah blah, about just how the market looks different right now. And he goes, he's not here to actually say exactly what it was, but basically he was saying that the easy money, or I said the money that we've made in the last 2 years in the transactions, it's going to be harder going into the end of this year making money. So you got to be smarter about the way you do things, right? And I think that's what you're really saying is, and you do that all the time, and Greg does that other time. I see Sean on here, Higgins. He does it all the time. I talk to Sean. You got to pick your spots, and I don't think this is one of those where you just buy 20 million feet of inventory and pile it at different places and just hope and just sell into a great big rising tide is going to be what we see going into the end of the year. I think there's going to be undervalued things, and I think we need to pick our points and really learn to pick the right things and turn them. And you have customers that are that you know how to do that with, Matt.
Well, I can tell you my attitude towards the euro thing is changed. Going back to the beginning of this conversation, I've dabbled in euro for years, and I don't really want to dabble right now. It's so tedious to get these, like the Port of Houston, and maybe they're better at it over in Wilmington or Savannah or Cape Canaveral, but
Matt, I think it's
in
all.
Houston, I'm having like nightmares.
Yeah.
I just spent the whole month of July tap dancing around with Port Arthur, right? And I don't want to do it anymore. I'm like, hey, if it's going to be this painful and arduous to deal with just the logistical side of that, I like the fact that I can make a little bit of money doing this, but
yeah,
I don't like it that much. I'd rather just stick to what I'm really good at, which is, the domestic lumber that I buy and the Canadian lumber that I buy. And it all comes to my inventory on a choo-choo train, or I truck it down there. And the people that you and I have had to deal with over the last, say, 6 months in Houston, not to throw anyone specifically under the bus, but as a whole, there's been a real lack of accountability. So at the end of the day, you, me, and our customers just have to deal with it. We don't have an answer. There's no restitution. There's no way to fix it. There's nothing that's going to get better about it. It's just, hey, we got labor shortages, and sorry.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
I just don't want to do it anymore.
I agree. I think you need to pick your points and just figure out how to satisfy customers, listen to them, and give them what they want, and give them advice, and keep moving stuff. Hey, so
I think the answer is more domestic lumber and less of the imported lumber. Honestly, that's for me, for my business.
So you had a note here: significantly low mortgage rates. I know rates are starting to come back a little bit. We went almost to touch the 6 handle, and I think they kind of moved back a little bit over the last 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe enough to at least quash, however you want to say it, some of the fear in the market out there. I don't know if it's enough to really kick in any new home sales, but maybe a little bit. I do see some of these home builders inventory is going up, which makes sense. The high beta areas, especially like Dallas, Texas, it's real easy equation. You have less sales 1 or 2 months, and the amount of new homes you're building, inventory goes up. That's all I read into that. I think that inventory will get worked through the system, um, one way or another. So I know Sean is on here. We were talking the other day on the phone about how good some of the Midwest markets are, right? So there's some areas that are overbuilt, but you look up in the Minneapolis area, they're still trying to build homes up there, right? And they still have a people that want. So that's one of those things where we always have to remember how home building, the home market, the buying market, not only is state by state, but very regional, right?
Hmm.
Very regional everybody in our industry always looks at the worst case scenario. Well, oh, hey, Boise's overbuilt or Dallas is overbuilt. Well, you're picking the two top spots that have been building in the last 3 or 4 years. Let's look at every other one, the things that people don't look at. Look at the Rust Belt, look at other places that are starting to have a little bit. So Sean had a comment up here. He says business is solid. Look at there's some places that are still blowing and going right now.
I mean, we need housing in this country, period.
Yeah.
We just haven't built enough homes in the last 14 years to keep up with the growth in the population and the aging inventory of existing homes, right? I mean, that's just math. That's not, has nothing to do with the pandemic or the last 2.5 years of lumber prices, right? Nothing. It's completely due to the meltdown in 2008 of housing.
Yeah.
And we went to
Yeah.
600,000 housing starts, right?
And we
then
did,
we
and we
stayed
just
below 1.4. So 1.4 million is like the break even for my entire. Really, you just take the last 50 years of statistics and say it averages 1.4, 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Is what we need to build as a country just to keep up with the growth in population and the aging inventory.
Yeah, and I think we were talking last week. I think it is like I think the actual is like more like 1.6 we need to build or something like that, or a little bit higher if you really follow.
But we can't build more than 1.4.
Well, currently we can't. 1.46 I think is the last one.
Right.
Currently we can't, but at least
Right.
that trend's moving in the right direction. Back to your point on labor, Matt. I mean, you need people out there putting up the sticks and the trusses and the wall panels in order to get them to build, right? And
man, if you were a young kid and a go-getter and you wanted to start a landscaping company or a construction company, you could be making a couple $100,000 a year quickly. I think if you just were the kind of person that, were really organized and you could keep a schedule,
well, I was
and you
talking.
did what you said said you're supposed to do, like, don't we all complain about contractors being flaky? But
Look,
if you were a good contractor with a good reputation, I think you'd easily be making a six-figure income in a short period of time at age 22.
Absolutely. Look at I had a person come over to look at my bathroom today upstairs. Some tiles fell off. I had to redo my bathroom. It took me a month to get somebody to come over and look. A month to get somebody just to look, right? And that's after one or two people actually were supposed to show up and couldn't. But the
I
interesting
like
thing,
Buzz's comment here. Do you see this on LinkedIn?
we need to modernize, industrialize the construction industry.
Yeah. Isn't that
no
what
doubt
happened in Europe with the CLT, and they're trying to bring that to North America now, and it's actually kind of catching on a little bit.
Well, no doubt. And look, so I talked about that, but then I'm talking to a framer up in Minneapolis on after our show on last Wednesday. He called me Wednesday night, and we were talking, and I said, "Hey, let me ask you something. What's the age of your framing crews up there?" Because he was saying how Minneapolis. He goes, the age of and Matt, you've framed before, or even just done stuff around your house. You don't feel real good afterwards. It's a full day. You're sore.
Yeah.
And basically, the feedback was, because our framing crews, when you go out there, are 55 plus years old. And think about that. You've got, I'm 54. You're out there.
You don't want to be swinging a hammer at age 54 years old.
Yeah, when it's 90, yeah, but they are, right? So we need more people doing it. We need to industrialize it, more tech, more off-site building and all that. But the fact is, we can only deal with what we have currently in front of us before we ramp all that up. So back to your point, we are where we are on the home building because of the situation we're in. When you said 2008, 9, 10, 11, we went from 2 million homes down to 600,000. We gutted the framing markets. We gutted everybody that was framing went somewhere else. No new people got in. in Illinois, there was 2 or 3 truss plants that were multi-million-dollar ones that disappeared, right?
Really?
And they disappeared all across the United States, and these plants got broke up. Now we're trying to rebuild plants again. So I guess what I'm saying is, and I've said this before, I'm excited about big money in buying homes and all that stuff because they're actually keeping a bid under the market so we don't have to destroy our industry every 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's let's go up to 2 million and let's go down to 500,000. Well, when you do that, accumulation and distribution causes complete destruction of the actual innovation and people that have built businesses. They're afraid to put money into them. So hopefully we can just keep housing strong. We need more houses, right?
Well, I feel like this year we're going to have a pretty good year. Like if you just objectively look at all the different construction industry related statistics as the year goes on and what we've seen so far this year, I feel like the price of lumber, like if Greg was on the phone, because I talked to Greg last night, if Greg was on this call right now, I think he would basically say this. He'd say, he expects a rally in the next few weeks himself. He agreed with my assessment on that.
Yeah.
He also would tell you that he doesn't think we're going anywhere special.
That's a good. We had the same
and
conversation.
I don't know. I don't really haven't decided yet whether I think we're going to go anywhere special or not. Part of that depends on logistics, and that's something I have no control over. Neither do you. So, and neither do our customers, for that matter. I mean, you can't really plan. It's hard to plan for the inefficiencies in rail. And those rail inefficiencies haven't been solved, right? I mean, it's just that we're not noticing as much now because there's a general slackening in demand here in the last 60, 90 days because of the time of year. What happens in the shoulder season in late August into September and October, where a lot of these historically colder upper Midwest regions want to slap as many starts in the ground as they possibly can before the snow flies, when there's some urgency. I don't really know how that's going to change people's attitude towards lumber. I also know that everybody's short. I mean, the multifamily dudes, they're not even, they're bragging about how short they are and how they don't even have to worry about stack. Remember a few months ago, you couldn't find reload space?
Yeah. Well, that's it. The whole multifamily.
Guess what? You can find reload space now because these guys are just holding on to the shorts. They're not even bothering to stack it into a reload. They're like, yeah, we got it to buy. We'll worry about it later.
Well, the whole multifamily side of the equation, I should say, a lot of them, I mean, 2011 to 2018, take orders, hold them short.
They're doing it now.
Hold them short. And when it works, you make a lot of money. Here's the problem. When it doesn't work, it's a tough deal, right? And the fact is you find out it's not working after you do your mark to market at a multifamily and realize how quickly in 2 or 3 days the market turned and went $150 a thousand, right?
Yeah. Well, they're back to their regular course of business.
But with that said, is where are those orders taken at? They have now the market sold off pretty good. They may have $500 a thousand in some of those orders.
Oh,
right?
I think they're more than profitable.
That's my point.
They'll be just fine.
Yeah, I think they'll be just fine. And a lot of them, some of the smart ones, which we all know, a couple of them that reside down in that Texas market, they actually do buy and put enough in the reload. They're pretty smart. And then there's some of them that aren't, that don't do it. But well, cool.
I mean, Matt, I'm more concerned about the fourth quarter than the third quarter. I guess is kind of my summary. I think things are actually pretty good right now, and even though the tone of lumber is a little bit soft and you can go negotiate, I mean, I'm buying lumber for less money for my sawmills. I've got more sawmills calling me and offering me stuff. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you a fable. You can negotiate. It's soft, but I see that as a buying opportunity, not as a warning sign, right? Kind of how I'm looking at it.
In your 30 years in the business, if you took out just the last 2 years and you were traded today, it's pretty damn good.
Like, you would be happy with how things are going right now.
You would be happy with how things are going. So let's put it in perspective of where we're at right now, and without the ability to predict the future too much. Things are going pretty good if you've got a good customer base and access to fiber and the ability to have some money to lean on. Is that a screen behind you that says ViewSonic, Matt, or is that a window behind you? I'm trying to see
what it's It's 2 monitors. It's
Oh,
the
I got
next
it.
cubicle
It's on
back.
somebody's back
Yeah.
window. It actually almost looks like you have a TV screen up that you're projecting a window outside. That's out looking over
We're
the
not
parking
that
lot,
tech
right?
savvy over here, buddy. Sorry.
Well, listen, we're a half an hour into it, Matt. I
All
appreciate
right.
the time
Yeah.
today. We'll get back at it next week, everybody. Thanks for all the comments. Buzz,
Yeah.
Sean,
Thank you.
everybody. I saw one comment here just from George Haw. He said, Richmond, Virginia dealer here. Customers are higher end customer builders. We are booming and don't expect to slow down anytime soon. Should be solid rest of the year. George, yeah, good point. I walking around my little neighborhood, the 5 or 6 homes that were for sale that I didn't think would move at all in the last month, like 2 or 3 of them walking to the dog beach yesterday have under contract on them. So as much as we can get negative, there's still a lot of stuff moving around, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sean was asking a good question. What would bring the most pain? And that's the old what would hurt most people the most. A rally probably would, Sean, because as Matt said, a lot of the multifamily people are short, and I think that would be and a lot of the big chain yards, and especially the people that have accumulated people, have run their inventory down to about as low as you can get without hitting the pavement. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah. I mean, they're still working on their inventory that they paid $1,100 for, but that's almost done. And
Yeah.
I, I'm not worried at all. I think things are just fine. And hey, I won't be here next week though. I am going to be out. But I look forward to catching up with you again the week of the what is that, the 15th.
Sounds great, Matt. I appreciate it, everybody. Thanks for showing up. We'll see you next week.
Take care, buddy.